Hello everyone, welcome to The Big Picture. I'm your lead co-host today, Justine Wanda, and with me is
Tom Mukwana, her co-host.
Mepan to Tom, but there is a blank screen.
Wamesema tutatokea wote, so I guess that's the point.
Shout out to us. It's a big moment for all of us.
Yeah, man.
And today in studio we have a very special guest with us. But before we get to our guest, I just want to contextualize that this particular episode will be highlighting a very key issue, Kenya's inequality, actually increasing inequality, why some people are gaining wealth and so many other people are falling into poverty. And also we will be speaking a little bit about the Kenyan Parliamentary Report on the abuses of the British Army Training Unit in Kenya, the one that's in Laikipia. So before we get into it, let us introduce our guest for today.
Yep.
He is an inequality policy and research advisor. Welcome to the show, Anthony Kamandi.
Thank you so much, Justine.
Thank you so much for joining us. First of all, hata sijampea accolades. He works in economic justice and he works to figure out what is happening in the social and economic inequality space, in education, in healthcare, in gender and other social identities. And also he's very key on promoting evidence-based practice policies and also to help create a more equal society. Asante sana for all your work.
Thank you.
So before we get into our topic, I just want to know, what does the 125 versus 43 million Kenyans mean? What does that mean?
I mean, it's shocking, Justine, that in this country, we have, as you mentioned, 125 Kenyans who do have more wealth than 43 million of us. And what do I mean? I mean that each of these 125 people, they have more than USD 50 million. That is about Kenya shillings, 6.5 billion, at least. So some of them have like more than that. But the poorest of them has 6.5 billion Kenya shillings. But at the same time, we have like millions of Kenyans who are sliding deeper into poverty, who are having to, sleep hungry, because they can't afford food. And as we are going to discuss, the cost of food in this country is increasing. So, yeah, we can put this 125 Kenyans in one of these buses that we have in the city. And yeah, they can buy 43 million of us. It's horrible.
Tuko kwa block, guys. We are on a block and every single of the 125 people can literally buy out 43 million Kenyans. That's just so shocking to me. Honestly, kushikania kwa poverty is scary.
Yeah.
I think it would be just greater if we were like, we had more better wealth distribution. But before we get,
you know what's crazy, Justine?
Yeah.
Before you continue, you said 6.5 billion
6.5.
per all of those 125. That's twice the school feeding budget for one person.
I hadn't even thought about it.
Yeah, it's just incredible to think about it. That's twice the school feeding budget
that
for a
is
year.
terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is terrifying.
To contextualize it, that's just mad.
Honestly, before we start getting mad with all the numbers and all the inequality that's going on in the country, I think it's very important to highlight that the Kenyan Parliament, I know, that collection of people, they had, there's a, I think the Parliamentary Defense Committee, it has, the Kenyan Parliament as itself has published a 94-page report accusing the British soldiers of decades of abuse, sexual abuse, killings, human rights violations, environmental destruction, and so many other difficult things that have affected the communities where Batuk is stationed. And the Ministry of Defense report gave out some recommendations that are supposed to change and things that the Batuk should do. The first thing is the Ministry of Defense wants to amend Kenya Defense Forces Act within 3 months to include a visiting forces code of conduct where they have zero tolerance for sexual and gender-based violence, and they have proper environmental obligations, proper social responsibility and civilian oversight. They've also tried to negotiate, or they're kind of negotiating at least within 3 months for child support mechanisms to be put in place for all the children fathered by Batuk soldiers. So those deadbeat colonizers need to get their money in check. You cannot just be fathering kids, and some of them even through rape, and running away from that responsibility and acting like you don't have a child here. So within 3 months, maybe we'll be able to see a financial framework. And then they're still in the process of extraditing Robert James Parkis, who is the murder suspect in Agnes Wanjiru's murder case. And they're also looking to provide evidence and report on this progress quarterly. The parliamentary committee also wants the DCI to probe alleged murders by Batuk soldiers within 6 months. And also negotiate the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to negotiate restorative justice, that's compensation and psychological support for their history of sexual offense victims within 3 months. DCI also is supposed to come up with is also supposed to investigate sexual offenses by Batuk within 6 months. And they also want the National Legal Aid Service to establish a survivors liaison unit in Isiolo, Laikipia, and Samburu counties within 6 months. Lastly, they want the National Legal Aid Service to assist in settling civil claims for injuries and losses linked to Batuk within 6 months. So I think my favorite thing about this report is making sure that they have set timelines, which means if you're going to follow up on these issues, there's between now and I say January or February next year, we should have some kind of leeway and progress on these particular things. So I think they're almost kind of getting justice, which is a good thing.
Well, are they?
Almost doesn't count.
Yeah.
We can only rejoice once there's like a finalized.
Yes, because we have a history of task force reports.
Oh,
and
Kenya does
committee
love a
reports.
task.
Yeah, it does a good task force. It loves a good task force.
Yes, so
and a good report as well.
Yes, they love a good report. They love a good task force, but the implementation, that's where they kind of drop the ball. But I really hope for the sake of all the victims and everyone that has been harmed severely. We even had Agnes Wanjiru's niece here, Esther. And she went to the UK, I believe, to follow up on this case. So I really hope that they get justice. We hope that they get justice in this lifetime because they deserve it.
Yes.
Yeah. But also the foreign PS, the Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary, was out here kind of agreeing with the UK that there are details of what happened at their training headquarters in Laikipia and all the surrounding areas that the Kenyan Parliament did not allow them to submit their own report. And I'm like, no, you're being investigated.
So allow the perpetrators or the alleged perpetrators to investigate themselves and submit a report.
Yes. And
there's an assumption that that will be a fair report.
Yeah, why do you think there's a whole independent committee looking into this particular? Because if you were investigating yourselves, you should have held the
perpetrator.
Yes. We shouldn't have to ask for extradition. He should literally be here facing the consequences. Should have faced
it at that time.
Exactly. It shouldn't have taken this long, and the family being thrown around in circles for them to actually get any semblance of justice, or even just for the case to be taken seriously. So I really hope that the almost counts this time.
Yes, I think it will because I don't think there was a time when we got this close to even seeing the person. That is true.
Yeah. So for Agnes Wanjiru and every other victim of injustice, we really hope that this comes through for all of them. So on to our focus topic for today.
Yes.
And this is why Anthony is here to help us get deep dive into Kenyan inequality.
Yes, even before we go there.
Yeah.
That Batuk story is also a manifestation of the inequality crisis. That it's those people who are at the bottom who are being abused. And it takes ages for them to get justice.
Yes.
I'm sure if their families were sort of rich, it would have been quite easy to get justice, but because you don't have a voice, you don't have power, you have fire resources, you can get abused, people get away with it, so we should condemn it. But I'm happy to see that we are going somewhere as far as that is concerned.
And also on top of that, the reason some of these things happen and the reason these soldiers take advantage of the young women there is because they know that they're economically vulnerable.
Yes.
it's literally, for some of them, that's their way of getting by. And a white man can look like the way out.
Yeah.
So that's also something that they use to prey on the young girls there. From the stories that I've read, it appears to be one of the weaknesses that they spot and exhaust.
It's absolutely tragic.
Inequality.
It's absolutely tragic that as a country, like the inequality is deeply embedded in our lives. Even sometimes you're not thinking about it, but it's so systemic in this way. So Oxfam International, where Anthony works, published Kenya's inequality crisis, the Great Economic Divide. And in this particular report, there's numbers I'm seeing, Adi, I'm beginning to question if I absolutely know mathematics or I am not understanding the extent in which we are struggling as a country, especially the lower half of the economy. So this report, like, let me just get through some numbers. This report says 7 more million people are poorer now. Like 7 million people have fallen into poverty. Poverty, like extreme poverty, I think has had a 37% increase. I think Kenya stands at 15th in the world in the extreme poverty rate. And then there's 17 million people who are food insecure and that's showing between 2014 and 2024. And lastly, the cost of food is higher by 50% than it was in 2020. Like, to just like summarize, like the quality and like the difficulty of navigating Kenya as a person who is not economically protected has really, really shifted for the worse.
Yes.
And I just want us to get like, what are the key, we've looked at the key numbers, but like how does that come about, Anthony? Like, how do these numbers come about? Like, what are either the root causes, or like how do you even start to quantify the kind of economic injustice we're seeing?
Oh, it's because of the policies that we have set as a country. Just to go back to those numbers that you are quoting, so from this report, what we are seeing is that from 2014 to 2015 here, extreme poverty, or people living in extreme poverty, has increased by about 7%. So we are talking about 7 million more Kenyans falling into extreme. And I am stressing extreme because that's abject poverty. So it means that these people live below 130 Kenya shillings per day. That's a situation.
There are people who are living 130 shillings a day.
Exactly. So go into rural areas or in some of these slum areas, people are having a hard time. And today, 1 in 2 Kenyans, they actually live in extreme poverty. And Kenya has actually the 16th highest extreme poverty rate in the world. We should actually not be talking about extreme poverty as a country. So Kenya is a lower middle income country. And our poverty rate is at about, should be about 180 Kenya shillings per day. But because of, so many people, they can't afford food, having a lot of difficulties. We're having to even go lower into what we are measuring, because if we go into use the poverty line that we are supposed to use, the numbers are even worse. Again, since 2014 there, we have seen that 17 million more Kenyans have become food poor. So they are going to bed hungry. That's actually 71% increase. That's massive. So as we are talking today, we have about 41 million Kenyans who cannot afford a decent meal. We have kids having to go to bed hungry, which is horrible. But at the same time, we are being told that our economy is growing, which is true actually. If you look at our GDP over the past 1 decade, so the GDP has been growing at about 5%, except 2020 because of COVID-19 pandemic. But this growth is actually going at the top. So we have sort of bottom-up economic system in this country. It's the richest few who are just taking everything. And we should look at the big picture. That's what we are discussing here. Why? is this the case? This is because of the our policies that we have created in this country for, so many years. We have a system that actually is supposed to benefit a few at the expense of the majority, because when you have like out of people who are poor, it's very easy to manipulate them. Especially during the elections, you can give them, some little amount of money, then you get elected, and then you continue stealing it. The cycle keep on repeating itself. I'm just going to mention like 3 things. One is taxation. The other one is public services. And the other one is on the labor rights. So if you look at our tax system at the moment, it's quite regressive. So you have workers, especially the low-paid workers, in the formal sector who are being overburdened by the tax system. Then of course we have the poor, because if you have a poor person out there, they earn like 200, 300 Kenyan shillings, they have to spend the entire amount of money on basic necessities of life. But if you are getting, say, 1 million, there is so much that you can spend that one on food or on some of these other things. And because of that, as a worker, you are being taxed up to 35%. That's not even that bad at the top there, but at the bottom, it's the teachers, the nurses, and the people in the, or the staff in the public service who are being hit the most.
Yeah.
So if you are, say, you are 20, 50K per month by having to wake up early each day, coming to work, having to beat all the traffic, the government is going to tax you up to more than 30% of whatever you are getting. But if you have this other person out there, they can't sleep the whole day, they can have all this luxury, but they have this, shareholding in one of these companies. The maximum that they are going to pay is 15%. So if I'm a shareholder of one of these biggest companies, and I happen to get, say, 1 billion Kenyan shillings, I'm going to pay 15%, just 15% at most, by just doing nothing.
Yeah.
And we have been sold this lie that meritocracy pays. That's a huge lie. Because if that were to be the case, our people in the slum areas, they would be the richest people in this country. Yeah. But the system is built in such a way that the wealth keeps on just going at the top. Tax is one area. Then of course we have things to do with public services, and we have like a massive problem in this country when it comes to health as well as education. So I started my primary school. I don't know when, Tom, you started your primary school. But I started mine in 2003 when Mwai Kibaki came into power. Yeah. And I am the beneficiary of free primary education. Yeah. I would not be here if Kibaki had not introduced free primary education, because my parents could not afford to pay for school fees. But can you imagine in 2003, capitation per pupil in primary school was 1420. And it has never changed since then. More than 22, 23 years, it's still 1420.
They've never adjusted it for inflation?
No, they've never adjusted it, which is a massive injustice to kids in this country. And again, what we are seeing in this report, if you're a kid and you come from poor background, you are most likely to get 5 fewer years of schooling compared to, a rich kid. So if you come from, a rich family, you're going to get, on average, 12 years of schooling. But if you come from a poor family, on average, it's about 7 years, a difference of like 5 years, which is, a big gap. And then you can imagine the impact of this. And even this 7 years, this poor kid is getting, we are not discussing about the quality of that education, because being in school is one thing, learning is another. Then, of course, we have things to do on healthcare, which is a major crisis. So we have been spending scarcely about 6% of our budget has been going to healthcare. So which means that we have been with almost more than 94% to spend on other things. So I've been spending mainly on healthcare. And this, what this means is that we are hitting those people who cannot afford to pay for health insurance. who cannot afford to pay from out of pocket, which is a big thing in this country. And as a result of that, you have Kenyans who are having to meet untimely deaths because we have not invested as a country on healthcare. And of course, we have kids who are becoming orphans because we have not invested in healthcare. You have hundreds of thousands of Kenyans who are being pushed further into extreme poverty because they're having to sell whatever they have to be able to afford healthcare. Then we are making the matter worse as a country because of the policy. So just the other day we passed the social health insurance. But we are talking about a country where almost half of Kenyans they can't afford 130 Kenya shillings per day. And we are telling them, you cannot afford 130 Kenya shillings, but we need you to pay 6,000 per year into this social health insurance.
Anthony,
it's not going to happen.
With no guarantees.
Yeah, I need your help understanding something here. We've grown up being told hard work pays. Work hard and you will become rich. And kids grow up with this vision of themselves working their backs off just to make a living. But are you telling me that as the report looks right now, and from everything that you've just said, can you work your way out of the 99% to the 1%?
No, you have to rig the system. You have to cheat the system.
What do you mean by that?
For you to be there.
So with
one way is to influence the decision that this country makes. For example, who gets tenders in this country? Government tenders. Just few. Actually, we have shown it in our report that it's just few people at the top who are able to, because they have this massive influence, they can influence the policies that the government is setting. Things to do with taxation. As a rich person, as a billionaire, I'm having to pay, like, I'm not saying I'm a billionaire, but a billionaire is having to pay 15% of their income at most, because we have things to do with capital gains. If, for example, you happen to buy shares at the Nairobi Security Exchange, and within a certain period of time, maybe the value of your whatever shares increases, you're not going to pay tax on that. On that capital gains that you have gotten, but you can take loan against that value, the loan that you are not going to pay tax. Tax is one of the ways that the rich use to just make sure that their wealth keeps on growing. The other thing is on privatization of essential, public services. As we speak today, we have almost the same number of healthcare facilities in private institutions as in public ones. And most Kenyans, they depend on public health facilities to get treated, to get their healthcare. But because we are not investing again on some of these public services, we are seeing mushrooming of some of these private institutions to cater for the richest. And we must remember, again, the wealthiest, the richest, they're controlling our politics. They control our institutions. They can decide that, we are not going to spend on healthcare because I need my hospital to have more patients so that I can increase my wealth. And of course, we can't stop talking about corruption. It's a big thing in this country. So there's no way that the richest, the 125% we are talking about here, there's no way that they work from 9 to 5 each day, that they have been able to make all that massive amount of money. Of course, studies have shown that sometimes because of monopoly things, issue, that also allows some of these people to accumulate massive amount of wealth, because if there's no competition and you have this just one company, it can overcharge customers because you can't do anything. Because they're going to keep their profit margin. The profit margin is also going to go to their shareholders, who are, of course, the richest guys in Kenya.
So you've kind of broken down like the divide, like how if you're wealthier, you're likely to continue making money, but if you're poor, you're likely to continue falling into poverty. There's something that I think was in this report where only 4 counties have 100% of their population living within an hour of a chief contracted facility. Like most people have to like travel for so long to actually get healthcare, and I'm just seeing you losing money, like you getting into that matatu, trying to travel from either county to county or like ward to ward, trying to get healthcare, and you losing money trying to access these services. There's something I was reading the other day about teachers specifically, where I think it's junior secondary school teachers who are saying they're being held as interns, which means that the government can only pay them 17,000 Kenyan shillings. And a lot of them were saying 17,000 does not mean anything in this economy if you have to pay rent, if you have to pay fare. And a lot of them were very frank about the quality of education that the kids that they're teaching or like they're helping out are going to have even less of a good education because some of their teachers can't even make it to work. Some of the teachers are working in spaces where their facilities are not equipped, and all this is like their education is completely affected because also the teacher is not even earning much enough for them to show up. And I have a question about one of the root, not just like the root causes, but like how inequality shows up in all these different instances. So what really kind of brings about the problem with like education, for instance, and how does that over time compound into like the failures? Like, is it like an underfunding problem that gets them there, or is it all like a pyramid, kind of a pyramid scheme of like everyone is kind of hoping that all these things will work together, but only a few people are benefiting? Like, yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure. Again, on education is so if you look at it, what is about, I mean, funding. Imagine 1420, 2003, 1420, 2025. What's that? Then, of course, we have like other systemic issues that sometimes money goes into places where it's not needed the most. We need more money in our rural schools. We need more money in our slum areas where we have schools. But you realize that a lot of funding is actually going to some of these schools, which are in the cities or in towns, at the expense of schools in far-flung areas, arid areas, as well as in the rural areas. But we also have to understand that, again, it's those people who are at the bottom there who are being impacted the most. So rich person, if you are one of the 125 richest Kenyans, there's no way that you're going to use a public school. No way. We have a lot of sort of private schools in the city, which means that if you are born in a poor background as a kid, there's a likelihood that you are going to grow into that poverty. Then you're going to get kids who are also going to grow into that poverty. The cycle keeps on repeating itself. Then if you're born in wealthy family, you're going to get quality education, you're going to get good nutrition, good health, but of course you're also going to get good job, or maybe you're going to inherit out of wealth from your parents. And if you look at these two kids, they're going to have totally different lives together with their generation. It's very easy to break the cycle. Imagine if we are able to give this poorer kid quality education, where they're not being set to go and collect school fees. They're not like learning and whatever trees. Imagine if we are able to give this kid good nutrition. So you mentioned about the school feeding program. We need it. One of these 125 Kenyans can decide that, I'm going to feed our kids for
full year.
entire year. But of course, give this kid quality healthcare. They are going to catch up with this kid who come from this rich, background. That's what we want. And that can happen if the government is investing. You don't expect that the richest 1%, the richest 125 Kenyans, that they are going to tax themselves. Paying taxes is not a charity. The government has to force it. It has to force people to pay taxes. And because the rest of us are paying taxes, whether you are poor, whether you are working in the formal or informal sector, we are paying our fair share of taxes. But we have this small group of Kenyans who don't have to wake up in the morning and go to to the office, but they are earning out of money. They are benefiting from the economic growth. They need to contribute for the development of our country. That's what we are saying in this report, that the government needs to do something. Other countries have actually done it. It's not as if it is something, out of... of course, we have also tried to do it, with free primary education, free, day school. Even with all these challenges that we have been having, we have tried to at least close that gap. They try to give Kenyans at least some education, because if it were not for free primary education, some of us would not be where we are.
Anthony, I will have to sit and be the person who presents the opposing view here. The opposing view is that a lot of these stories of the men who, some of them occupy this 125 club, they were not rich, some of them not rich from the beginning. The essence of what you're saying basically about taxation and progressive taxation, that's wealth redistribution to an extent, right? Someone might say, why are you trying to knock their hustle, to use a colloquial term? Why are you trying to go after the people who made their money legitimately from doing good business? Because some of them got their wealth from ingenuity and actually building things. Does it feel like this is a problem to do with legislation and these industry leaders, or is it both of them colluding to make sure that the big cabal of evilness that makes sure that the poor remain poor and they collect and usurp all of that wealth?
We're not saying that the 125 because we have other Kenyans who are not part of 125, but they are still rich. We're not saying that they have gotten their wealth illegally. Yeah. Some of them, they have worked their way. But the way the system is, it's supposed to just reward a few. So if you get your 100 million, your 1 billion, again, as I said, when it's come to tax, you're just going to pay 15%. But if you are a worker, you're going to be punished for just being a worker, for working hard. You're going to pay up to 35%. And then we are not talking about these levies that we have introduced in the recent past. So you cannot tell me that you have these two people, you have a worker here, then you have this person who is filthy rich, that because we are telling this person who is very rich, can you please pay up to 35 or maybe 30% of your whatever you are getting in form of taxes, as this low-paid worker is doing. There's no injustice there. And actually what we are seeing is that it's a huge injustice that you are having to, because government needs money. What it's doing is that it's going to this low-paid worker here, because this, you don't have like an influence. They don't go to parliament to influence some of these tax decisions that we do make. So it's not fair. And we keep on fair. It's not. We keep on hearing this, that this rich person has worked so hard. No one is disputing that, but most of the studies that we have done, it's not true that they have actually worked that hard. Some of them are corrupt, but the system should be in such a way that it's fair to everyone. It should not be fair to just rich individuals, being unfair to the vast majority of Kenyans. Then, of course, you pay more than that % of your income, but you don't get services. Then you have to pay for health. You have to pay for education. You remain with nothing at the end of the day. Yeah.
That's actually justifiable, because I know a lot of people who are in the wealthier equation, or like the part of the like people who are more wealthy, most of them, usually people ask online all the time is like, what have you built? What's your industry? What are the things that you've done? But one of the things that also stood out for me in the report is how this is something, it's almost like a baton that's been passed off from like a different time to another. And I think, could you kindly clarify for us how colonialism plays a part in building wealth inequality?
Yeah, sure. And actually, most of these problems, they were started by the white man during the
Always a
colonial
blessing
days.
of a crown.
Then, of course, then our governments have like perpetuated what they inherited from the colonial government. So when the white man came to Kenya, they developed some areas, central highlands or some parts of the Rift Valley. Then they neglected some of the rest of Kenya because they thought these places were not productive. Turkana, according to the white man, was not productive. Mandera was not productive, but Kiambu was, because they could grow cash crop, coffee and tea. Which means that schools were built in where the white man was. Hospitals were built in where the white man was. Not because the white man, loved Africans, but in most cases it was for, to help, the colonialists perpetuate their colonialism, because, you needed at least some educated people to be in the office, and because you don't, again, want to pay your workers well, you can just get the labor from the local population. And of course, you need to give them just some amount of education. Then, after independence, of course, then we have the issues to do with land thing. We have our land which was stolen by the colonialists. Then came we got our independence in 1963. And the government then, continued to do the same exact thing that the white man was doing. You have people who stole. If you look keenly in Kenya today, some of them wealthiest families, they have their wealth can actually be. You can go back to the colonial eras to just trace where their wealth is coming from. Look who has most of them land in this country. If you go into history, you will realize that some of this land was actually the land that was left by the white man, the land that was supposed to, be occupied by the peasants or Africans, so to say. But what has happened is that once we became independent, then of course the government continued to neglect those parts it deemed unproductive. Again, in ASAL areas, they were neglected. Roads were not built there, schools were not built there, hospitals were not built there. And we continue to see that one today, up to date. So in some of these counties in Kenya, you realize that their life expectancy is too low compared to some other counties. Education attainment in some of our counties, especially in some areas, is also very low compared to some of these other counties. Of course, we have devolution, which was supposed to cure that, but what has it done? What did it since?
So with devolution expanding corruption instead of curbing it, I think, Tom, there's something we were talking about earlier, how it's just like land inequality, and also like how debt is also playing a part. I think maybe you could expand a little bit on that.
So on debt repayment, debt servicing, that's a very crucial part of your report. You say that 100 shillings collected in tax, 68 shillings of this are used to repay debt. And this is double the amount in 2017. So things have progressively gotten worse as far as debt repayment is concerned. And then if you say this is happening to the money that we are all contributing, that means just 32 shillings of 100 shillings is going to actually come back to our lives to impact us in education, healthcare, infrastructure, and all those things. how does this then translate to how my grandmother lives in Shags? Because that would mean that she's not getting the pension she deserves, right? That would mean that I can't take her to a hospital because the hospital is not stocked enough. If I or my niece is born, no, not I. If my niece is born tomorrow,
If you and your
yeah,
niece.
I was like, I was going back in time and some vampire stuff. But if my niece is to be born tomorrow, that means that she might need to share a baby crib or those incubator machines, because this is a real story actually. In Mama Lucy Hospital, four infants, newly borns, will share one incubator. She's incredible to even just imagine, but that's exactly what you're talking about, because there isn't enough money to buy those equipment. So how does this debt burden that we speak of every day, I think this is a very good opportunity for you to help us contextualize how bad this can affect our quality of life.
It's already affecting a quality of life. It's not how, but I mean, it's already doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the biggest crises that we are facing as a country is on debt crisis. That we are spending almost 70% of our tax in repaying expensive debts, which means that we are, crowding out social spending. That even if the government was to maybe increase health budget, say to 20 or 15%, it's also very challenging for them to do so, because they're having to pay all these external debts as well as internal debts. But we must also ask ourselves, who are the owners of this debt that we are repaying as a country? So if you look last year, I think in 2023, the interest rates on public debt was quite high. Almost, I think there was one infrastructure board that almost fetched 19% in interest.
Yeah, I think it's
But
treasury bonds and the bills.
Exactly. So if you are paying almost 20% in interest, that means that you are being left with nothing, or so to spend on social services. So we are spending almost 70% of revenue in servicing debt, which means that then we don't have a lot of money to spend on some of these social services. And then what the government is doing is to tax Kenyans. They have to keep on looking for ways to tax Kenyans more, especially through sales as well as the value-added taxes. Because we have, workers have been taxed a lot. They cannot add more taxes on workers. What the government is doing is to look for some of these, I would call them creative, but they are going through that indirect
what is
taxes.
an example of an indirect tax? That's
Exactly. And we know that indirect taxes actually, they hit the low-paid workers, people as well as the poor the most, because as I said, they have to spend almost what they are getting in accessing the basic necessities of life. So if you increase taxes on goods and services, they're the ones who are going to be hit the most, not the wealthiest guys up there. And
how does that work? How does the lower income population get hit more by taxation? I believe it's just equal all through. How does that happen?
So imagine you earn 200 shillings per day. What are you going to spend on that 200?
Mostly food.
Food.
Exactly.
And fare.
That food is taxed. That fare you're saying is also because of fuel, so on. But imagine I earn say 1 million Kenya shillings per day. How much I'm going to spend on food? How much am I going to spend on fuel? So it's just a small share of whatever I'm getting. That's why we say that the poorest people, the low-paid workers, or the low-earning workers, they are hit the most by indirect taxes. And actually, indirect taxes are regressive. That's why as Oxfam, we keep on campaigning or advocating for progressive taxes, whether you're talking about things to do with capital gain taxes, dividend taxes, wealth taxes, property taxes, because these are taxes that are paid for by the wealthiest, the people who have the most capacity to do so. But back to the debt question, our debt is almost half domestically and half external debt. You have the likes of the IMF who have, I think we abandoned a program that we had with them in March, which had raised some issues because the IMF told the government that for us to give you this loan, you need to privatize some of these state-owned enterprises. You need to cut your spending. And the IMF is actually very clever. I mean, they go to countries, they tell them, we need you to reduce your budget deficit by, say, 3 or 4% of GDP. But they don't tell you how you are going to do so. And for the government, the easiest way to do so is to cut spending on some of the essential public services. Because things like education, we are spending about 20% of our budget on education. There's no way that the government is, for example, is going to cut spending on, say, parliament or, state house, or maybe on defense. They target some of these low-hanging fruits, which of course some of these services are used by the vast majority of Kenyans. But what we are saying is that we need support from the international community for us to address this debt situation, because there's no way that Kenya is going to get out of this situation without the support of the IMF, but at the World Bank, G20, and some of these rich countries. But even so, the help that they give us should not worsen the already bad situation. So we need the IMF to tell the government, we are going to give you this loan. And we must remember that the loan from the IFIs, the World Bank, the IMF, they are at very low interest rates. They are actually very good. Then they're also long term. So we tell the IMF that, yes, as Kenyans, we need your support. We need more money, and we need your support in getting out of this debt situation. But whatever advice that you are going to give to our government, whatever loan conditionalities that you are going to give to our government, they must be geared towards making the lives of Kenyans better. Should not be just growing the economy, but making vast majority of Kenyans poor.
So I know it feels very grim. I had 2 questions as we wrap up. The first one obviously has to do with the way wealth inequality affects different genders. So there's part of this report that explained that for every 100 shillings that man would likely make, a woman is probably getting paid 65 shillings. So there's like a 35 bob deficit. I asked Tom to share kakata. So the thing that I'm curious about is like what does unpaid work mean, especially for women who are likely doing like a lot of the agricultural tilling and all these different parts of what is considered like labor, like actual labor that is very beneficial to the economy. What does it mean for that women are doing unpaid work? And also, just so we don't end at like a very grim note, like what are kind of the solutions long term that would help change wealth inequality outside of just readjusting our taxes and all these things?
Yes. The unpaid care work in Kenya is about 23% of GDP. So we are talking about 2.544 trillion Kenya shilling. But most of this unpaid care work is done by women. Who is cooking in our homes? Who is taking care of the sick in our homes? Who is fetching water in our homes? It's women. It's women who are taking care of kids. It's when a woman, give birth, they have to get out of paid labor force to go and take care of their kid. And this also because of the social norms that maybe women are supposed to be doing some of this unpaid care work, which is actually regressive. This has an impact on how wealth is distributed between men and women. As we have elaborated in our report that in the formal sector, that 65 shillings that you are mentioning is actually in the formal sector. We are not talking about the informal sector. As for every 100 Kenya shillings a man earns, a woman gets 65 sharing. That's on average. I mean, if we go deeper, the picture is even worse. When a woman give birth, of course, they have to get out of the paid labor force. Yeah. And because of the high informality in Kenya, that's job informality, where I think 9 in 10 Kenyans, they are in the informal labor force, and most of them are actually women. So women account for about 38% of the formal labor force, which means about 62% is occupied by men. We don't have like a protective mechanism to protect workers in the informal sector. So if a woman gets pregnant and they need to go and take care of their kid, they're not going to get like paid maternal leave because it's not there. It's just for them. I mean, just the few in the formal sector. This, of course, widens sort of, gender inequalities. So you as a woman, you are being paid less on average. Then, of course, you're having to do all this unpaid care work compared to men. And in most cases, it has to do with the norms, the cultural norms that say women is less human beings, which is so horrible that yeah, if you get a married woman, it's very easy to pay a woman less than this man. That's where we are as a country. Of course, things have tried to like improve a little bit, but we still have a long way to go. And in particular, making sure that we are protecting the women in the informal sector, because we aren't doing quite well. We have like a lot of sexual harassment that, as a woman, if you want to get this job, you have to offer some favors, which is so horrible. Some of these things, they're not being talked a lot because of fear of reprisal and so on and so forth. But that's the situation that our women and girls are facing, and that one can be closed. And one of the easiest way of closing them unpaid care work, as well as some of these regressive norms, is to ensure that we are spending well on public services. Look, so women are the biggest users of healthcare. They're the biggest users when it comes to, water and sanitation. This report, about 70% of the water is collected by women. We need to invest in WASH through tax-funded, initiative. And by doing so, we are going to reduce the unpaid care work on women. We need to invest more on the ECDEs for the kids, because again, it's women who are taking care of these kids, because as a country we have not invested well on some of these pre-primary education that we really need. And of course that also requires money. Back to the issue to do with progressive taxation.
Yeah, that's terrifying. So Tom, after umesikia utanipe 35
tunaweza ongea, it's actually 17.5 nasema 35
say like
urudishe
to like we pay your 35 bob so that we just
we'll talk about it.
Okay,
I'll walk the talk.
Okay. I think we've delved into that, and just before I give you
just something about the job market. I did mention that we have very high informality in this country, where 85% of Kenyans, they are in the informal sector. But even for those who are formally employed, we are seeing that wages are actually going down. The economy is growing, but wages are actually declining. So since 2020, workers' wage has gone down by about 11%. So whatever you are earning in 2020 has gone down in return by about 11%, which means that on average, workers are becoming poorer. But companies, they keep on reporting billions of shillings that they are making. And one way why they're doing so is paying workers poorly. Because if you are paying your workforce poorly, you're also going to increase your profit margins. And there are some solutions that as a country we can adopt. And one is to ensure that we are closing the, gender pay gap in the workforce. But I think for me, importantly, is to reduce the joblessness that we have as a country. And we can do this through the public works option. So the kazi mtaani, I think it's one of the easiest way that we can use to, employ, hundreds of thousands of youth that we have in this country.
Isn't that what he's doing, though, Anthony, with the affordable housing program? He says that he's employed around 250.
No, I know whether it's 250.
More than that, actually.
Can you
I think this is a very
numbers?
conservative figure.
Yeah.
He says a lot more than 250,000.
Yes, I'm just finished the whatever the kazi mtaani thing. So we are seeing it at the national level. I don't know it's climate works or something, but we also need it at the county level. The governors need to do something. They need to introduce their own kazi or county initiatives so that we can make our counties clean. We can make our towns clean. And then of course the affordable housing project is supposed to create some jobs. But we are seeing a lot of challenges, especially when we start talking about the levies. Who is paying these levies? We must remember it's not 125. Those richest 125. They don't earn like us. They don't get the salary at the end of the month. So it's the workers again, the low-paid workers in the formal sector who are having to contribute to that housing levy. But the billionaires, the multi-millionaires in this country, they don't do so because there's no way that they just get their dividend or capital gain tax. They just move on. But yeah, that the affordable housing project could create job if we use it wisely and use it in a way that is not like overburdening the already burdened Kenyans.
Most of that money is in T-bills. That's what they've said. So we really hope it's at the T-bills and it's not somewhere
Allegedly
relocated to the debt. So allegedly. Before we wrap up on today's particular episode, Tom, do we have any public participation to look out for?
Yes. So the Autism Management Bill, Senate Bill number 19 of 2025, this is a bill sponsored by nominated Senator Karen Nyamu. I knew that reaction would be drawn from you. But Karen Nyamu, the senator, sponsored this bill. You can send your feedback on the bill. The deadline is 22nd of December at 5 p.m. As usual, it's through the clerk of Senate at parliament.go.ke. This is a Senate bill, which means you're not sending it to the clerk of the National Assembly this time. It's the clerk.senate@parliament.go.ke. And you copy the health committee.senate@parliament.go.ke. For more information on this, you can go to Mzalendo's page. But Justine and Anthony, for me, what stood out in this bill is a very small part that is actually very shameful, that the bill says that it will train Kenyans on autism prevention when autism prevention is not a thing.
Have they done like revolutionary medicine enough for them to know?
Maybe they're defunding research to fund Senate research through Karen Nyamu. Who knows?
Shout out to
but it's horrible. It just looks bad on them. And on top of that, there's a lot of ambiguity in how the phrasing happens. For instance, for special needs education, they say that there will be ways of prioritizing autism or including autism in a more noticeable way. A lot of questions to do with this, but you see, for me, it would take a lot of reading to know this. Perhaps if you have a child who is on the autism spectrum, you would know what they need more. So share your opinions with clerk.senate@parliament.go.ke before December 22nd and send your feedback.
Absolutely. Look out for that. Send your opinions through. That's important. I think for my segment, I will try to explain kind of badly what is going on in two segments of the country. The first one is the Water Resources Authority versus the communities in a certain part of the country. So over 30,000 residents in Nyeri, Nyandarua and Laikipia remained without water after officials from the Water Resources Authority, kind of backed by the armed police, went and vandalized their Kamiruri intake. That's where the community had set up the water project. And you would think, the Kenyan Villain Academy has so many graduates, and like the Kenyan police is at the top. They've been top of the class this entire year and all of last year. probably just before the colonialism thing. Like, they've been here forever. And I think the goon economy will outlive us all. So the water project was built by the community members. They didn't have supply to water, so they were like, we're going to set this up for ourselves. But the water authority, that resource authority, was like, we feel left out, so they went and like they vandalized the place. And I checked their website to find out what the authority does. So apparently they do water resource regulation, water use allocation, water resource data management, and the most important one is community and county engagement. They didn't say that the community and county engagement would be positive. They just said engagement.
They will be engaged.
Yes, so they were engaged by bringing police to beat down the entire area and like secure it and like vandalize. So everyone thinks that GOK isn't investing anything in citizens. And I disagree. Look at the amount of hate they've put against their citizens. You know, like if we can just harness all that hate that they have in whatever they call their hearts, and we just take that energy and we put it out there, I think Kenya Power would be out of work like this. Yeah. The second story I want to cover is something that is very close to my heart. It's about HELB. If you so the Higher Education Loans Board, popularly known as HELB, has been sued for charging interests, penalties, and fines that go beyond the principal amount that people paid. So HELB is is very busy putting the higher purchase in higher education. So three student borrower petitioners filed a lawsuit saying HELB was asking for way too much money back, and which is justifiable because one of the petitioners was a person with disability who had borrowed, I think, a little over 89,000, but they were being asked to pay back 540,000. HELB was like, our interests and our penalties and our fines are very good with diversity, equity, and inclusion. We don't discriminate against people with disability. We will fine you. So I know there's someone out there who's renting a 2-bedroom in Kilimani, and they're like, 540K, that's just like rent for 3 months. And to that I'm asking, why are you charging so much money for people to live in upmarket pipeline? Like, can we literally be serious? You know, some of your residents don't even have a relationship with the sun. You know, there's a bunch of Nairobians who are suing the county because they cannot see the sun. So fix that. You know, have some balconies out there before you start charging people. Okay, sorry, I digress. We cannot be bringing back
for everyone.
Wait. We cannot be bringing back diseases like rickets in Kilimani. Please give your residents sun. Okay, nimemaliza hiyo part.
You digress and then digress.
Digress. So the High Court the High Court actually sided with the student borrowers, stating that, you know, that statement that one of the most famous borrowers in the country made, you know, sasa mnataka tufanye nini? You know, that's not what the court said, you know, but like that was kind of the vibe. So the High Court ruled that HELB should stick to the in duplam rule. Mimi ni nani? I obviously asked my friend who's a lawyer. He studied law to be pretentious, but that's not the point. So I asked them, and my friend told me in duplam means like you can only pay up to double. After that, you are done. You don't need to pay more. And I think that's fair. Like, why would you pay more than double? So I wish I had Googled that, but I needed to consult them. They put so much money into that degree. And to me,
need to feel useful.
Yeah. I think to me, the B in HELB stands for beware. We will charge you thousands of shillings in fines. And HELB kind of defended their greedy Pithekas. HELB kind of defended the greedy Pithekas fines. They were saying that the deductions were statutory but not contractual. So it didn't even make any sense, because like if someone has already paid up to half, so they operate on a different financial framework. And the court countered them by saying the fines, penalties, and interests were too high. You know, even Snoop, Wiz Khalifa, and Bensol know their limits. So HELB should kind of know.
Sky high.
You know, like you kind of have to bring it down to earth. So other students could use this ruling as a precedent, and I think they can file a class action lawsuit, because you shouldn't be paying this much money.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
And also, just it speaks again to the inequality problem, where if people borrowed because they didn't have money, and now they're being charged more when they're paying back, most of them are going to be financially set back.
Very true.
So there's also so much student loan debt in a country that wants to become Singapore. I don't know where we're going, but it's very discouraging to see. Maybe the Singapore we're going to is that dark Singapore, you know, it's not very promising. So between people who are paying black tax, starting a family, trying to find a job, how is anyone supposed to get out of HELB debt? So people are borrowing to survive, and the unemployment numbers in this country could literally elect the president of a small country. So HELB, please add like a Tosheka affirmations to your vision board. You know, you need to you're not a learning shack. You're not a learning shack. You're a program that is supposed to help students get financial assistance. So stop using that program to do like a penalty revenue stream. You should not be withholding people's certificates and destroying people's chances for upward mobility. We want as Antonia said, we want a more equal society. So don't be the hurdle that makes other people stop from getting there. Yeah. So that's it from me.
Brilliant, Justine.
Yeah. So I think I want to give like the last word. The last
yes,
word
to the guest.
To the guest. Like something promising, like something in the horizon that's a little more promising to look out for, that maybe is kind of helping reduce inequality.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that, Justine. I mean, it's whatever is happening is reversible if we have political will, as well as introduce progressive policies. And yeah, three things. One is to ensure that the wealthiest in this country are paying their fair share of taxes. So for example, if we were to tax like 12,000 richest Kenyans, those are multi-dollar millionaires, we can get more than 450 billion Kenya shillings, which is enough money to fund the universal healthcare, which means that we don't need the SHIF or the sham. So we need to make our tax system progressive. We need to increase the capital gain tax from the current 15% to match the corporate income tax, which is at 30%, or even to match the maximum personal income tax, which is at 35%. We need to increase the property taxes. We also need to introduce wealth or net wealth taxes, as well as taxes on inheritance, especially if you are bequeathing a massive amount of wealth. The government needs to tax you so that we can fund some of these essential public services that we are talking. Then we need to increase the money that's going to health education. We really need to do that, because we cannot keep on spending like 6% of our budget on health. We need to increase that to at least 15%, which is actually the recommended amount. And then finally, we need to do something about the joblessness and the quality of jobs in this country. We keep on hearing how the economy is like producing like almost 1 million jobs, but most of these jobs, they are actually in the informal sector, where the pay is too low. There's one way that I did mention this, is that the government need to, for example, reintroduce or scale up the Kazi Mutaani initiative. This also needs to go down to to counties, to ensure that whatever the money that the counties are getting, they are also employing out of our youth to collect waste to make our towns and cities clean. And then finally, we need political will and commitment for all these things to happen, because without it, we're not going anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Thank you so much for being our guest today. Tom, do you have any last words? Hey, sounds like a
Texas movie. Any last words, Tom?
Tom, do you have anything to give our audience members?
No, I don't have anything to add. Anthony has said most of it, and I think I've learned so much from this episode.
Absolutely. Yeah. And from me is to say good night, fight wealth inequality wherever you are. I've been your lead co-host, Justine Wanda, and with me,
Tom Juana,
and our guest, Anthony Kamane. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you.